It's November 20th, and we're going to do business and security today.
As usual, we'll start with the layoffs.
AMD is going to lay off 4% of its workforce, or about 1,000 employees. The CNBC article is worthless, but mostly those employees came from semi-custom, but there were a lot of employees from all over the company. AMD is working with the people that are being furloughed or laid off to help with the transition. It is layoff season. Like, companies do a lot of layoffs in November typically.
And the space race, not immune.
Behind the black. What is this?
Jet propulsion.
Oh, yeah. Wait, what? Oh, JPL is going to lay off 5% of its workforce for the third major layoff this year. So, also, NASA's looking at what's happening in the commercial space, and they're saying, you know what, that space launch system,
We can't compete with that. We maybe shouldn't try.
Did you see the chart of cost to launch space, things into space from like 1960? And it's just this slow line, and it's got like Boeing and Lockheed and stuff, and then it's SpaceX, and it's just like...
Pretty incredible. And it's also incredible that this company took this long to die, because what a horrible, horrible thing it is.
DNA testing site 23andMe to lay off 40% of its workers. This was telegraphed by us like 6 weeks ago. It's amazing that they lasted this long.
Because they got hacked. They proved they couldn't protect your genetic data. They lost it all. And people were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that.
I should delete my account. They didn't delete the data. They still have the data. So they're going to sell the data now, probably.
Also led by the ex-YouTube CEO's sister.
Yeah, the other dark aspect of this is that sometimes these companies are maneuvered into bankruptcy so that their corpse can be picked over. See also Sears.
Who would want to buy a giant database of genetic data? What value is there in that?
Oh, there's so much value in that.
And electricity is a thing that we all like having. Boy, it sure makes life easy, doesn't it? But what if we have to compete with the data centers?
Gartner predicts power shortages will restrict 40% of AI data centers by 2027. Rapid growth in energy consumption for Gen AI will exceed power utilities capacity. Yes. I should buy this 18 megawatt power generation facility that runs on it's a bioreactor. It runs on garbage basically. I should buy that and build a data center in the back of it. It's only 18 megawatts, but I mean that's perfectly reasonable small size data center.
Could be worth a lot more as time goes by, right?
Yeah. Well,
unless something major, unless the alien technology.
Cost of electricity production should be on the order of about 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Or less.
But maybe those data centers might not need quite as much power. However, this is one of those pie in the sky articles. I'll admit, I added it in. We don't know if this is actually going to be something in production yet.
New thermal material provides 72% better cooling than a conventional paste. This was made at a university. They're working on mass production right now, and data centers are already keenly interested in this.
Gradient layers of material are the secret to this. Somehow that pushes the heat through more rapidly. Would be game changing if it were real. And this is real. You're not going to get one, but it's real.
Micron unveils industry's first 60 terabyte SSD with PCIe 5.0 by 4 interface.
12 gigabytes per second.
It's fast. Although there is a thread on the forum, because this is coming out, a lot of the OCP data centers are doing surplus now, so you can get OCP surplus SSDs. And you can get a 16 terabyte SSD for on the order of $500 now. It's the long ruler format, so you got to do adapters and stuff. But there's a thread for that on the Level1 forum if you want to have a insanely big 16 terabyte flash drive for games. But again, it's only going to be PCIe Gen 3 because it's surplus, and it may be shredded, meaning that it's not got half its lifetime gone, but the ones I got were amazing.
And if you're an Amazon driver, you're entering into your busy season, and you have some new rights to not go to meetings. Isn't that fun? And not be tracked, except that's not real. But the surveillance will increase until you are eliminated for robots.
Amazon developing driver eyeglasses to shave seconds off deliveries, sources say. So that you could use these to speed up looking at stuff so that you don't have to look at stuff and not deliver a package.
This is for the part after you get out of the truck.
Yeah.
Like, you might need to go to a certain desk in a building or whatever. Amazon will learn that, which makes me think, remember the argument about the robot vacuums?
Yeah.
This is mapping the world for Amazon.
Down to the centimeter resolution. It's amazing.
And this is another, we got the pie in the sky battery technology. This one is actually real. You can actually already get these. But can we transition to them effectively?
Lithium-ion batteries have ruled for decades. Now they have a challenger. Sodium-ion. This is broken by us. Remember the orange batteries that we had on like a couple months ago? I'm running those in Raspberry Pi backup batteries, and they're great. They're only about 40% of the capacity of a good lithium-ion 18650, but that's more than enough for a Raspberry Pi 4 to keep it running for almost an hour.
So they're building a factory. Do you remember where it was?
North Carolina?
I don't remember. Yeah, North Carolina. So they're going to 24 gigawatts of batteries annually. They're going to start making these. They admit they're big and heavy and they don't have as much storage, so you can't use them in devices and everything, but like just a big brick in your garage.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I actually would prefer this over other kinds of energy storage because it greatly decreases the chance that a malfunctioning cell will burn my house down.
And this probably won't be the hot product for this Christmas, but maybe next Christmas they'll be ready to convince us that everybody needs this.
LG's new stretchable display can grow by 50%. Bendy panels can be deformed into new form factors. I mean, it looks cool, but up close you can see that it's got some mileage on it.
Put that on a t-shirt though.
Yeah.
People will go crazy for it. Wrap your car in that?
Yeah, wouldn't be good for a computer display. Would be good for other things.
Imagine you wrap a whole vehicle in that. Have a big giant billboard.
It was the Knight Rider TV reboot where Kit got that kind of a skin because it could change colors and that sort of stuff electronically.
Was that for like stealth?
Camouflage, yeah.
Well, this may be the closest thing we've ever had to Kit, right? But it's got some problems.
Tesla issues its sixth Cybertruck recall in a year. It's a 1.0. It's the DeLorean of our age.
$100,000 1.0. It's some kind of motor inverter that would fail and you couldn't accelerate at all. Seems like a serious problem. And TSMC have their Arizona plant, which we've seen some positive headlines about, although the worker safety has always been in question.
Workers voice safety concerns after TSMC fined for violations following on-site death. This was in Arizona, and this seemed like a horrific way to die. One person died as they were transporting a pressurized container of sulfuric acid. It was overpressurized. They hit a bump or something on the forklift that they were on, and it depressurized with such violence they were thrown 20 feet, and they died of sulfuric acid and being thrown 20 feet from a sulfuric acid. That is a horrific way to go.
Hopefully it was dead before the acid had any impact on him. They interviewed an anonymous supervisor here, and he was like, yeah, this is a big problem because of the secrecy, no one's allowed to have a phone. They gave me a phone, but we're out in the middle of the desert. There's no service.
Yeah.
So I can't even call emergency services if something terrible happens. And this is the thing you were talking about yesterday, which is Microsoft just won't stop. Like, who at Microsoft, are they blind to this, or is it just hubris that they think that we'll never reject them?
Microsoft Edge is trying to forcefully get you to use Chrome tabs again. Joke's on them. I'm not using Chrome nearly as much as I used to these days.
So they already did this where Edge would get all your stuff out of Chrome, but now it's doing it on every boot, and it's not even asking anymore. It's just, yeah. There's a lot of users, like those people that didn't know Biden dropped out of the race. There's a lot of users, if you make it look similar and you give them their that's like, oh yeah, this is what I've already had, right?
I have to admit that because I have multiple profiles and I don't normally, I used to use a thing that would save and restore cookies, and Google decided that no, you must be logged into Chrome, which I did not want. And I would like to manage my own cookies, thanks. And so I have a few times it's been easier for me to just deal with Edge than deal with Chrome in terms of like session management, like to create and destroy sessions and sets of cookies. And I've also noticed, like, they're talking about tabs, but I've also noticed Edge stealing the cookies from other browsers. Because it's like, wait a minute, that token was never in this browser. What's going on? And it's like, oh, that's mine now.
Can you imagine if any other piece of software did that? It would literally be a crime.
If other pieces of software that do that, like I have little utilities that I've used since time immemorial to do that. Microsoft Defender picks those up as malware, and they're doing the same thing, and they're just really, really old utilities. And Defender's like, this is malware, and it's like, this is what Edge is doing. Is Edge malware?
Well, speaking of malware, it's easy to get malware on your phone, especially with those app stores being able to protect nothing. There are some good ways of dealing with that other computing systems have adopted that it seems that Android just never wanted to be a part of. Now they're kind of doing it, but I don't think they're going far enough to give the user any agency here.
Android 15's virtual machine mandate is aimed at improving security. No, it's not. That is a lie. That is a lie. Google is requiring Android devices to have virtual machine capabilities, which I think was originally introduced in Android 7 or 8. And the reason for that this time around, the article does mention, is to be able to support Linux terminal apps. So Android wants to provide a way to be able to run Linux applications because Linux is kind of coming in vogue. But Google doesn't trust Linux applications to be well behaved, so they want you to use the virtual machine facility for apps. It's like, hello, anybody home at Alphabet? I would like to use the same facility for anything from Mark Zuckerberg. Definitely, if I were going to run the native Twitter app.
Google?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, just why can't I run regular Android apps in exactly the same sandbox? That would be reasonable.
Well, it's not reasonable. And you know what else is not reasonable? The subscription snowball that we get ourselves into, right? You get a little $12 here, $15 there. It all adds up, and people are getting smart to it.
A new streaming customer emerges, the subscription pauser. This is a lot of articles to just tell you, yeah, subscribe to one thing a month and rotate it. And that's what a lot of people are doing. You don't need to subscribe to Hulu and HBO Plus and Disney Plus and Netflix and whatever else. It's like, okay, these 2 months are going to be Netflix. These 2 months are going to be Disney Plus. These 2 months are going to be HBO Plus. That is a reasonable way to manage your finances. Good job.
Also, they point out like live sports and stuff like that. It's only in season for a certain amount of time. A lot of people just completely drop off at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Maybe even when their favorite team is out of the contention for any kind of finals. And when a new show comes out. But that's bad, though, because it encourages people like Netflix to cut the cord immediately. It's like, oh, you didn't drive enough new subscribers? You didn't get all the people to come back? You don't get a season 2 ever. We got to get the next big thing. Which is
disappointing and terrible.
I don't watch any of it, but maybe I would like to again. I don't know. We can get back to the old days. And this is a great do you have a license for that meme? Do you have a license for information for the world? Data that can help people avoid horrible flooding. No, you don't have a license? Well, then no one gets to know.
Academic papers yanked after authors found to have used unlicensed software, computational fluid dynamics software. They didn't have a license for it. So the rules for the paper publication say that you have to always have real. This is probably safe because sometimes pirated software like deliberately is broken in a weird way. But usually your institution has a copy. And so I don't know. I would love to know more about this situation. Like, were they running the real software in the lab and the pirated stuff at home? Did the lab have pirated software? Like, what happened here?
Or how about just pay it?
Yeah.
Okay, pay us for the license and we'll let you publish the paper. But no, they're not doing that. And spyware. If I tell you that you have spyware on your phone, you're going to think, well, that came from Israel, didn't it? It was from Israel. It was purchased by a government who they promised they would not sell it to, and it was put on my phone. But no, it's catching on.
How Italy became an unexpected spyware hub. And this is Pegasus style. It's like the worst sort of spyware, not just, advertiserware. It's just the stuff that hacks your phone and lives there forever surreptitiously because, again, nothing runs in a virtual machine because of the hubris. It's like, careful, Icarus. don't fly too close to the sun. It's like, oh yes, we need a security sandbox for Linux, but we don't need a security sandbox for all these terrible, poorly vetted applications on the App Store. No, that's just silly.
Also, in the case of Israel, at least, it seems like, very shallowly buried is hand in hand of the government. Not just looking the other way, but encouraging. There's a beep. Did you hear the beep?
I did. What was that?
Probably some kind of surveillance tech. I said Israel.
Interesting.
Speaking of surveillance, here is a great new website that if you don't know how dystopian your world is, just go take a peek at this.
The open source project DeFlock is mapping license plate surveillance cameras all over the world. So we've covered this software before, and now people are starting to put two and two together, but it's going into a central database.
And you can contribute if you want to. They just go around and map all of the cameras. There's also a lawsuit we talked about last week where someone made the argument, it's like, hey, I literally can't go anywhere without being around your cameras. And they're going to get some nice help from this to be able to prove that. Because they were just doing it on their own. And Amazon has had a data breach. And as usual, they say, not us, bro. This was third party.
Microsoft confirms employee data is present after a hacker claims that Amazon data was in the MOVEit breach. Yes, that was true. Amazon was using their services, and so a lot of Amazon employee data is compromised. But if you're an Amazon employee affected by this, Amazon offers you no recompense.
It wasn't as bad. Well, it might have been, but they claim it wasn't as bad. There's no social security stuff here. It's your name, what building you work in, and maybe where you park or something like that. Although a stalker could certainly enjoy that information. And another data breach, this one a little bit worse.
1.5 million Americans hit in massive debt relief service data breach. Names, addresses, SSNs, and more have been exposed.
At least they can't ruin your credit, right? Because it was for people who already had bad credit. And Apple, once in a while, Apple does just screw the cops a little bit. And that's fun. I mean, I don't like them. It doesn't make them a good company, but it's fun to see these little things. Like the whole FBI thing. Although that was probably darker than we thought.
Police freak out at iPhones mysteriously rebooting themselves, locking the cops out. So after a recent iOS update, apparently Apple phones can communicate with Apple phones directly, wirelessly, surreptitiously. And if a phone does not have its radio on, or the radio doesn't work, the iPhone tells the other iPhone reboot to try to get the network back as a troubleshooting measure. And so if you take an iPhone into a room of a bunch of iPhones after the update, it's like, hey, you guys aren't on cellular at all? It's like, nah. It's like, all right, you should reboot and get some cellular. There's some yummy, delicious updates.
Cops were not fans of that. And there is this thing that says that tech companies don't have to give cops your information without a subpoena, at least. In some cases, a warrant, although I think subpoena usually gets it done these days, right? But there's a loophole, a giant gaping loophole that says, hey, it's an emergency. Give it to me now, and we'll worry about all that red tape later. And cops abuse the crap out of that. But they're not the only ones. This goes back to the whole encryption backdoor.
Yeah.
Right? They created an encryption backdoor, and guess what happened?
FBI says hackers are sending fraudulent police data requests to tech giants to steal people's private information. Yes, a lot of the cryptocurrency hacks, or people had their wallet stolen or their identity stolen, start with stealing a mobile phone or stealing a mobile identity or stealing an account on a platform. It's like stealing access to a Gmail address. And it turns out that all of this is so lackadaisical structurally. Remember the Chinese thing? It's like, oh, the Chinese have hacked the system. Yeah, they've been in here for years. Don't build the back door.
And you've probably been getting a lot more calls, scam calls. I certainly have. It's their holiday season too. They got to get their quotas up. And a couple of companies are working on some hilarious ways to defeat that.
A phone network employs AI grandmother to waste scammers' time with meandering conversations. Basically, the phone network says, hey, this Exchange is calling a bunch of our unused numbers sequentially. We should route a bunch of the unused numbers to our AI grandma that's just going to waste their time. And they get more money for that. And so like they have more airtime and more charges. It is literally profitable for the company to do that than just block those kinds of calls because you don't always know.
It's beautiful. I love it. And I wish Krista was here for this one because she always predicts this.
Yeah.
She always predicts like it's going to go toward this. For some reason, they want to monitor this constantly. And Amazon definitely was planning it.
Amazon shuts down secret project to develop fertility tracker. Well, who thought this was a good idea? Why do we need this project? And it's clearly somebody knew that there might be some issues with it because they made it a secret project. There's so many questions.
Now, this was saliva based. You would give it a saliva sample a couple of times a day, and it would tell you where you were in your cycle. And I guess someone finally said, hey, guys, this is a little too Orwellian. I don't think this is a good movie.
This was the line in the straw?
And 23andMe is probably going to go out of business, and you don't know where your data is going to go. But that's not the worst thing that can happen if you mess around with these companies.
DNA testing company vanishes along with its customers' genetic data. This is in London, and I can't remember the name. It was like Biomed something.
Yeah, it was like some letters.
Ultra Biomed?
Yeah,
Atlas Biomed. There we go. Atlas Biomed. They just disappeared. And so they tried to track him down and like the business registration office, and it was like, yeah, they just disappeared.
No one can find them. Physical address is gone. Social media is dead. Phone numbers are gone. No one knows where that data is. Nowhere good.
Nowhere good indeed.
And when you run a horrible giant corporation like that, eventually you're going to make someone mad. And you're going to make someone mad who has access to things. And you have to be really careful about that.
This is a post-mortem on a thing that we reported on a few weeks ago. Why you should always offboard your outgoing staff. A disgruntled ex-Disney employee targeted former colleagues with a distributed denial of service attack and hacked its menu system to change peanut allergen information. You may recall that Disney has a pending manslaughter case against it for killing somebody that had an allergy. Probably not unrelated, but apparently the article indicts Disney for not offboarding its IT employees. It's like, hey, your position's been eliminated. You should leave now. It's like, okay. And then they just, wreak havoc.
Really malicious, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're really hurting a third party there. I understand that if someone dies from peanut allergies at Disney, that will hurt Disney. But it hurts the person that dies way more.
Yeah. This person may be criminally liable.
I would think so, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, Disney's going to insure that, right?
Yeah.
That guy's very screwed. And maybe he should be because that's a horrible thing to do.
This is not the case that led to somebody dying. This is another different case that led to somebody dying. But I almost wonder, is Disney the type of company that would engage in so much subterfuge that they would pay somebody to do this in order to have the argument of...
to prevent another one of those cases.
I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that Disney has done, and it is really not out of character for something that hideously evil.
That's going to be prison time, and you're going to be infamous. What's your number to do that?
10, 15 million, 20 million maybe? I don't know.
It's pretty dark. And air fryers, I love my air fryer. How did we take this long to invent air fryers? It makes no sense.
They are nice, aren't they?
And everybody's getting one. But yeah, mine, like when the power goes out, about 15 minutes after the power comes back on, it's like beep, beep, beep. And I was like, why is it beeping? It's beeping because I've never given it a Wi-Fi password. Yeah. And it gets angry about that.
Is your air fryer spying on you? Concerns over excessive surveillance in smart devices. Yeah, the air fryers have gone full LG TV. The newer LG TVs get so pissed off when you won't give them a network connection. It's amazing. It's like I can see there's a network connection through this HDMI device you got connected. Don't you want to add me to the network? No, I know how that goes.
Thermostat, speakers they point out. It's just everything wants to be connected, and when you don't connect them, these devices get surly about it.
They do. Why would I want that experience? That experience is terrible. It is not for me. That is for somebody else.
And here is, this is, from the horse's mouth. We don't usually do these kinds of things, but this one's not hard to see through because this is kind of a thing that we're seeing more and more of. Prevent surveillance by bathing yourself in surveillance. That's the thing here.
The Google security blog this week is Safer with Google, new intelligent real-time protections on Android to keep you safe. Now, it's interesting because I don't know if it's related to this, but I've gotten a few pop-ups on Android lately that have been like, hey, we noticed you've never agreed to the terms of service for this thing, because I usually do like creative things like shut down the application or I just delete the terms of service screen or whatever. And I got a couple over the last week or so that have been like, hey, you really need to agree to the new terms in order to do this. I was like, no, I don't. Sure don't.
So this, Google points out that there's going to be people who, like the phishing scam you were talking about earlier. You're not smart enough to avoid that, clearly. Like, it's working. People are falling for it. So Google says, hey, we're just going to listen to all your phone calls from now on. And we're going to use AI to monitor those phone calls. And if we hear something suspicious, we'll let you know. We're also going to do that for all of your Google Play apps. So while your apps are running, we're going to monitor everything that's going on with them. And we'll let you know if we find anything suspicious.
That seems like a lot more complicated than just putting the application in a sandbox. And then when the application tries to venture outside the sandbox, it's like, pling!
What could have been 2 minutes earlier, and then we would have had a perfect example of malicious phone calls.
Or malicious. I just don't trust AI to do, like, it is so much better to just take the thing and shove it in a sandbox. And done. This also, the part also that your description leaves out is that in order for this to be effective, you have to have the data from a whole bunch of people. So like when you get a scam call and it's from the same network and somebody else gets a scam call and it's from the same network and somebody else gets a scam call from the same network, they're able to really quickly shut down subsequent calls. So maybe they might only get 5 or 10 scam calls through from a totally new exchange, which would remove a lot of the financial ability to do those kinds of scam operations at scale.
It's going to be funny when they get false positives. Like some silver spoon kid just keeps calling his parents and asking for more money.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're a scammer.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm just a loser.
Well, you wasted another perfectly good see you on Friday with nonsense and whatever.